welcome back. Thank you all for joining us once again here at the Reach In Talk Show, where we're talking all things life and wellness. I am yours truly, none other than the Dr. Nicole Burnett, your host. As we talked about on our last show, this month is actually attributed to Child Abuse Prevention Month. And our shows, they're a little heavy on topic, and they're hard topics, but they're very necessary topics. Did you know that according to the Centers of Disease Control, that 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 13 boys will be sexually abused before their 18th birthday? Like, wow, here in 2023, and 90% of the perpetrators are people that they know and their families are familiar with. So do we have a problem? Yes, we have a major problem. So today we're going to be talking about how to prevent sexual abuse of children in our churches. Yes, I said it, in our churches. So without further ado, I have one of the most bodacious, phenomenal, successful business women, mother, grandmother. Ooh, we're going to talk about that grandmother part on our platform today to help us unpack this sensitive topic. So thank you for joining us. But without further ado, I want to introduce to you our special guest, Miss Rose Pickens.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so very much, Dr. Nicole, for having me on and for addressing such a important but often muted conversation.
Oh wow, that's I love the way you said that, muted conversation, because that's exactly what it is. But before we get into this conversation, Let's talk about you. You are such a phenomenal woman. You have businesses. You have such a long history of just serving people. Tell me some of your background, some of your experiences and what you've contributed to community and all of that.
Well, I really can't talk about me without talking about my mom and my grandmother who came before me, and their service to their community and their service to their church was part of what I saw growing up. So it only came natural to me to continue that on. So my grandmother was the founder of our church that I grew up in. Her and her cousin actually said, you know what, we need to start a church. She had 12 children. And so they founded the church that I grew up in. And then my mother, she worked tirelessly in that church all the way up until she passed away. And so seeing them not just serve in the church, but also the community, instilled in me that sense of service. And so from an early age, I remember, just being at church from sun up to sundown, doing different fundraisers, helping out in the community in any capacity. So when I became of age, that service above self came very natural. And so I served in a lot of different organizations, volunteered in my church, and even in other capacities, even though my professional life may not have been a service field, I still found a way to serve my community. I worked 24 years in retail, and in those different retail capacities, I still found a way to reach out to the community to be able to serve those less fortunate individuals, whether that was through distribution of goods, whether that was through supporting individuals, whether, fundraisers or other capacities. We always found a way to give back and to connect the community.
So basically you were born into this.
Exactly.
You were born to serve. And I think it's so commendable that even as growing up as a church girl, and I can identify with that because I was a church girl. I always say I was born into the church on a Sunday morning at 10:31 a.m. just in time for 11th hour worship.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
But allowing, just that servitude and having those examples before you, which is so important for young women to have those examples of service in front of them. And the fact that I'm excited now, I didn't see that in your bio, but your grandmother was the founder, I guess, the overseer of the church?
Yes.
That is amazing. I love to hear when we begin to celebrate women who establish churches because, still culturally, even in our society today, so many people, they have still resistance with women in leadership and in the church. And I can talk about this. I pastored for over 20 years and I established my own churches as well. So I understand the pushback from that. But usually when women are in leadership and things of that nature, they literally serve people and they're very community focused. And for that to be transferred from generation to generation. And so now you're still doing the work. And some of the information now, I thought you're not only just a community advocate and leader, but you're a business owner, and you're the business owner of Beach House on the Brazos. What is that about?
So Beach House on the Brazos is actually it came from an area of through the trials. Mm-hmm. So we live in Fort Bend County, literally just a few yards away from the Brazos River.
Okay.
We actually had a disaster happen twice. So our house actually flooded during the Memorial Day of 2016 floods,
wow. Okay.
and then again during Hurricane Harvey. Through all of that, I kept on getting this message from God to rebuild, but to improve. So we actually raised our house 10 feet.
Okay.
And in doing so, we actually have over 3,600 square feet of usable space underneath our house.
Okay.
So now we turn that into an event venue
wow.
where we can host anything from birthday parties to anniversaries to weddings to family reunions. And so through the storm of flooding twice, we've been able to launch a business out of it.
Wow.
So we have weddings scheduled for the fall. We have family reunions. So through that, we've actually launched our event venue. We also do luxury picnics. Okay. So we actually bring the event to you. We'll set up a picnic in the park, or we'll actually set it up in your backyard. So that's Beach House on the Brazos, which is the parent company. But we also do custom apparel. We also do custom mugs, backpacks, whatever it is that you need customized. We do that as well.
Oh wow! I feel like I'm supposed to go to church now.
Okay.
Because it says when all things work together.
Yes.
For the good of them who love God and are the called according to His purpose. So you went through that tragedy. Well, it was just travesty. I mean, because it's devastating when you're flooded out, you lose things. But out of this happening, out of adversity, was birthed prosperity.
Correct.
I don't know. I felt if I had a glass of wine, I would drink to that. But out of adversity was birthed prosperity.
Yes.
That is such an inspirational piece of your story, because when people are experiencing adversities of life, the trials of life, the traumas of life, sometimes it just looks like there's no hope. But as they said in the old days, they said you take lemon and you make lemonade.
Right. And
you all took lemon, of course, under God's guidance, and made lemonade.
Right.
And I think that is phenomenal. See, I didn't know all of this, y'all. I'm learning this today, too.
Yes.
I know about the business. I just didn't know how it was birthed and how it came forth. So even with that, what were you doing prior to your business, Brazos on the...
So I actually started out before the flood. I was a development director for a nonprofit organization. I had been doing that for over 4 years, and it was basically a nonprofit that advocated for the marginalized.
Okay.
So people who were in poverty, people who were undereducated. So we actually worked in the community, worked with the local churches, with other organizations to improve the life of individuals within a community. So it was community-based, community-focused, because obviously you can't say we're going to change the world without addressing it locally. So I worked as the development director and then also as the community director for a local initiative. And in doing so, I realized that basically what I was doing was I was advocating for others to be able to bridge that gap in between the city, between the state, speaking up for people that couldn't speak up for themselves, whether it was an educational boundary that they were needing to overcome, or a language barrier, or whatever it was. We stepped in and we became that voice for that community, and provided them resources in order to escape poverty.
Wow. So what I was hearing about the gaps, bridging those gaps, a lot of times we find in our communities that sometimes we have the wrong gatekeepers in place. And you all served as gatekeepers in the community, but you were effective because you truly were trying to bridge the gaps. Unfortunately, sometimes, I'm going to just say it, we have the wrong gatekeepers. There are resources that are available for communities, but sometimes they don't have the accessibility, not because they don't exist, but it's because it's the wrong gatekeepers. So I honestly just want to appreciate you all and the endeavors that, you all took to make sure that communities and the marginalized actually received the information that they needed. And I'm just thinking about you, just as the woman you are. Not only did they receive, they were made aware that these resources existed, but they gained access. But you all helped them understand how to apply those resources as well, correct?
Correct.
Because, I find it interesting when someone say, well, we told them where to go get it. But the truth is, and I don't believe in common sense. I believe common sense is common to whom is common to.
Correct.
Because there's a lot of people that should know things, but it doesn't mean they've been exposed to it or they understand it. So when it comes down to resources, we have to, number one, make people aware that they exist, then show them how to access the resources. But then we need to take a step further and make sure that they understand how to apply the resources. Because if they don't know how to apply the resources, then what does it benefit them? And so it's just real good to hear. And I know that there are still organizations in our communities that are doing the work that you all did. And I commend you all, because our show is about exposure. And for those of you who are watching and listening today, you may be feeling discouraged, like you need some help and you don't know where to get the help. Keep looking. Also contact us and you'll be able to get information at the end of the show. But there are plenty of resources for anything that anyone needs in this world. I'm a witness to it because I work in community. And so as you've worked in community and you found yourself serving everyone, and you're serving endlessly in the church, and you're doing all of this wonderful work because you're such a phenomenal woman. When did you find time for you?
Oh, gosh. I have to give you my little secret.
Okay, you're going to let the secret. I feel special. I get the secret. Okay.
So,
well, we all get the secret.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What's the secret?
The secret is the average person only has 24 hours in the day.
The average? Okay.
Okay. God has actually blessed me with an extra 2 hours.
So
I actually have 26 hours in my day where I'm able to take that 2 hours for myself. No, actually, it's balanced. I really worked to try to make sure that everything was accomplished that I need to be accomplished. Whether it was attending my kids' events, or whether it was doing something with my husband and having date night. I was always trying to make sure everyone else was taken care of. And it took me some time to say, hold on, everybody else is 100 around me, but I'm like running on E. So how do I take a moment for myself? And it doesn't take very much for me.
Right.
You know, it's something as simple as running up to the gas station and getting me a Reese's peanut butter cup and a Dr. Pepper and just spending some time just to myself. Right. So just finding that balance in life and really learning that, hey, there is a time that you're going to have to, you know, take a time out, refuel yourself before you can give back to everyone around you.
Okay. And so all of that has to do with, and I heard you earlier say, serving others over self.
Yes.
But then we also have to learn that self-service is necessary, right?
Absolutely.
So, and in listening to your phenomenal story and all these wonderful things, you know, what's that song? I'm Not Your Superwoman. I'm just a kind of girl that you can lay down. Everything's okay.
I am only human.
This girl needs more than occasional. Okay, all right. Okay, girl. I think we both feeling that, right? Yes. Okay, so self-service is very important, and we as women, a lot of times we play that role as superwoman, but oh, how refreshing and freeing it is when you realize, first of all, you're not superwoman, but what's most refreshing, you don't have to be superwoman.
Right.
You can be human.
Right.
And so just to kind of shift in being that image of a superwoman and a superhero with your children and your husband and your grandbaby and all of that, you've been productive, you've been successful, you've been a servant of everyone else, but you've also been a survivor.
Yes.
And so today we want to talk about your survivorship. But before we do that, we'll be right back. Talk show where we are talking all things life and wellness. And I am your host, Dr. Nicole Lynette, and we are today talking about how to prevent sexual abuse from continuing in our churches. And we have, again, our great, bodacious boss lady, but also a survivor, thriver of abuse herself. So we're going to welcome back Miss Rosie Pickens. And I just, first of all, I am so appreciative of your courage, your tenacity, and just your unlocking the key that you've been given through your testimony and your story to help unlock other victims and survivors just courage to share their story. Because when I first met you, we were sharing at your Rotary Club, and we were sharing about, my organization, Resuscitate Inc., and how our cause is child sexual abuse prevention. You blessed me so much because you just came and you just told me, hey, I'm a survivor of that. And let me tell you what I really loved about you. You were like, and I am on this quest to make sure nobody else has to go through what I've gone through. So let's just talk. So you're a survivor. When did your experience start? When did you first have an experience, as far as you can remember?
Well, that's the important thing. It's as far as I can remember. I was sexually abused.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot happens with my memory
Mm-hmm.
because I have created a defense mechanism,
Mm-hmm.
and it probably dates back to before I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
But it was obviously someone that I knew,
Mm-hmm.
someone that was close to me and that
Mm-hmm.
should have protected me.
Right.
And it was someone that was in the community
Mm-hmm.
and everyone thought so highly of
Mm-hmm.
and respected.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in the church.
Mm-hmm.
He was a pastor, a preacher of a church.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt as if anything that I said or anything that I did, people probably wouldn't even believe me because they couldn't believe that he would do something like that.
Right.
I mean, he was one of those Baptist preachers, could
Mm-hmm.
preach you up out of your seat and
Right.
down the aisle and back around. He could hoop, he could holler.
Right.
And that was on Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to believe that Sunday night he was a totally different person.
Mm-hmm.
Because things just didn't line up.
Mm-hmm.
I often tell the story to young women
Mm-hmm.
and young men alike,
Mm-hmm.
because it's important for people to know that the ones that are closest to you
Mm-hmm.
have the greatest access to you.
Right. Right.
I was actually sexually assaulted by my father.
Mm-hmm. So sorry.
Who was a outstanding preacher.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of followers in the community. He was a businessman in the community. A lot of people respected him.
Mm-hmm.
And I, as far back as I can remember, was assaulted for at least 5 years.
Okay.
I never told anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I think people should have known.
Mm-hmm.
I never told anyone until the day that he died.
Wow.
The day that he actually died, my mom told me that he had passed away, and I just broke down sobbing. And that's when I told her that he had assaulted me and had been assaulting me. And of course, I told you my mom was an amazing woman.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And just her first question is, why didn't you tell me when it was happening?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it was fear. It was fear for me and my safety.
Mm-hmm.
It was fear for her and her safety, because he actually told me, if you ever tell anyone, I'm going to kill your mom.
Wow. So were your parents together or were they estranged?
They were actually together.
Okay.
They were married all the way up until my father passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very abusive relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I would see my father go out, get drunk on a Saturday night,
Mm-hmm.
come home and beat my mom,
Mm-hmm.
physically assault her, verbally assault
Mm-hmm.
her. And that was nothing I can do. I was 6, 7, 8 years old.
Right.
And I'm the baby of the family. And so I was there and saw it all happening.
Right.
And so when he told me that he would, in fact, kill her, I knew that he could.
Right.
I saw the abuse.
Right.
But what did not make sense to me is that all of this was happening within our 4 walls. But on Sunday morning, it was like it was a totally different person.
So could that be why when you stated to you felt like people should have known, but why did you think they should have known? what would give you, any kind of clues of why they should have known?
Well, it's not that they were looking in our household, but the simple fact that I was a hurt child.
Mm-hmm.
I was what people would see from the outside as being fast is what I was told. Oh, she's just fast. She's just always in a little boy's face, or a little boy's always in her face. And then, back then you used to play hide and seek, go get it. And that was what I was, being told. Oh, stop being fast, or stop wearing your shorts so short, or it was that I was more of the issue, and no one took the time to figure out, well, why? Why does she feel like she has to be so flirtatious, or why does she feel she has to have the attention of the boys, or not just the boys, but the tension in the room? Like, why is she showing up like this? Could that have been something that someone saw and just assumed that it was my personality? Or could someone have actually known that maybe she's been groomed, or she's been, kind of taught to do this kind of stuff?
Well, I mean, that's a valuable question, and that's why we're here today. Because the truth is, I shared statistics earlier, and the statistics that are shared are under the numbers are greater, right? So they're underreported, and so during these seasons, when you were a child, when I was a child, there was more hush. What goes on in this house stays in this house. People would look away when they seen things happening, or that they knew of things. Because usually, and again, I'm going to say thank you for sharing with us, because you didn't have to really disclose who it was. And I did share that with you earlier, but the fact that you chose to do that, we appreciate that. Because some girl out there, father is abusing her, right? Some boy's dad is abusing him, or mom is abusing him. Because that's one thing we want to share too. Moms are not exempt. Right now, statistics even show that even in the schools, there are more women abusers than there are men. Women abuse. There are, and I know in my family, there's an aunt everyone loves that abused one of my cousins. And when she told me, people didn't believe it, right? But this has been going on for centuries. And unfortunately, these are not household conversations that we have. Now, we'll teach our children, put on a helmet when you're going out to ride a bike or a skateboard or something of that nature. And we do it for the sake of safety. But unfortunately, because child sexual abuse is so prevalent, and people are so power hungry, and people are so broken. Let's just go there. Because we still hear it takes a village to raise a child. But if the village is broken, we raise broken children. And in your situation, if they don't know the signs, if people don't know the signs, they don't know the signs. They think that is, is the pastor. I have some documents here. And I want to just kind of deviate a little bit, because you're not by yourself. When the Uvalde shooting took place last year, when that report came out, about 2 days later, another report came out about the Southern Baptist, was it, I forgot what the Southern Baptist, I'll get to see in a minute, but the Southern Baptist Conference, thank you, Lord. The Southern Baptist Conference, where that was actually an investigation that took place, and they reviewed allegations for a 20-year span, from 2000 to 2020. And in some of these reports, and I have the information here, and you all can pull it because it is a public record. That's why I have the information. But there were reports of abuse, and they were saying things like, this whole thing should be seen for what it is. It's a satanic scheme. Because you have young women and minors being abused, and what they're saying is, this is just They have gone to the SBC looking for sexual abuse. And of course, they found it. But they're not to blame. The devil just using them.
Wow.
Why people don't report? Here's one. Similar to your case. This young man, he was a music minister. And it was reported by a blogger in 2011 that this young man had allegations and had been charged. And the church didn't want to believe it. They just dismissed him quietly. And he went to another church, and here it says, subsequently he made a public confession at the current church and was charged by police with sexually abusing several young boys at his former church. And it was revealed that one of the most prestigious names in the church, they just dismissed him quietly. And then there was a report, oh my God, of a pastor that had been a registered sex offender for abusing his own children, sexually abusing his own children. I'm bringing this up to say that this has been happening for centuries. This has been happening generationally because so many people have been covering it up. And that's why I really commend you and appreciate you for being bold enough and courageous enough to share your story. Because there are many, right now, we're preparing for a community event where we're going to talk about the pastors that are in communities that are registered sex offenders. Wow. And their congregants and the parishioners, some of them know about it, and they're still trying to protect them because it's about protecting their image. Like you say, oh my God, they're very, very prestigious. People have great respect for them. But you have victims right in your church. You have victims in your home. You preaching the church happy, but you are creating hell in the lives of your children and your family members. So the question is, where's the help? And you know, people go, but where God is at? God is right there.
Right.
He's right there. I'm going to say this to the audience. It has never been God's intent for anybody to sexually abuse you or abuse you in any form or matter. That is not God. That is not the will of God. And I don't care if it's a man or woman of God. They don't have a right to touch you inappropriately. They don't have a right really to overstep boundaries in your personal space, period. So if someone's at your church, can I help right quick?
Okay.
Talking about the Lord and told me to lay hands on any of your body parts, you need to get away from them.
Right.
I don't care how much they prophesy. I don't care how much they say they speak in tongues. I don't care how anointed they may be. But if they're doing that, they're operating in a spirit of perversion.
Right.
It's a spirit of perversion. But I'm going to deflect back to what you were saying because it's very dear to me, because I don't like the idea that we have people in the church who's supposed to be representing a loving God, executing ungodly, unloving acts that provide trauma and crisis for people, especially children.
Well, one thing that you said, it's information. So how am I going to know that what is happening to me is perversion or inappropriate if I haven't been informed, or that I don't have the information that this is not right? Because the whole time, this is someone that I should be able to trust. This is a leader. This is someone who's telling me if I want to get closer to God, you need to do X, Y, Z, or I have to be able to do this to you because I'm closer to God and I'm going to help you. So if we are now at a position of we're trusting this person, then that's how it's happening.
Exactly.
Most of the time, and I don't have the numbers or the figures, but most of the time, The predator is someone that you know
Yes.
and that you trust, and they have gained that trust from you.
Right.
So it makes it a lot harder for your mind to get wrapped around that this is so wrong, that what's happening is so wrong. And I think that what we have to do, and this is, now I do want to say that part of my story is the healing from that. And what I had to go through to be able to tell this story. I didn't start telling this story until I was 23 years old. And that's when my healing started.
Right.
Because I had to realize that it wasn't me. That didn't happen to me because it was me. That happened because that was a sick individual.
Yes.
But I had to begin to forgive him, even after his death. I had to forgive him so that I can start forgiving me, because that set me up for years and years and years of promiscuity, of untrust, broken relationships, and I couldn't move forward with my life until I dealt with that, so that I can put that behind me. It never goes away, but it keeps on getting, every time I tell my story,
you get it.
It's more healing on top of that.
Yes.
So for me to be able to help others identify it, know what that is, I am a firm believer that our kids need to know where their privates are.
Yes.
And that no one should be touching that. No one. And to have someone that they can go and talk to. That was one thing that I look back on, and I had my mom, I had my sisters, but I didn't have anyone outside of that household that I can go, because I'm in the same house with them. So I'm thinking, okay, y'all not catching up on these little signs. Like on Saturday night, I'm watching wrestling, and it's just me and him in the living room, and everybody else is either gone or asleep. Like no one else is seeing that. I didn't have anyone outside of that home that I could trust enough to go. So I often think back, like, okay, so it wasn't on me. But was there someone else that may have came to me and said, hey, what's going on? I've noticed something different in you. I've noticed that you've changed, or that this is going on. What's going on? And I think that we need to be that. We need to be the ones that are identifying those potential, red flags that are popping up in our children. We need to be able to, it needs to be someone in the home. It needs to be someone outside the home. We have to be that.
Well, then it goes back to what you stated earlier. How do we know? How do children? Well, we have to train our children.
Yes.
And unfortunately, like when we talk about with our organization, because you said so much that's in our trainings, and like you need to come on board. The organization, having a trusted adult is so important. It may not be someone in the household. It may be, and I told the story last week. I won't tell it again. Y'all can go back to the previous show. But finding a trusted adult, how there was a kindergartner that actually identified her kindergarten teacher as a trusted adult. And she disclosed her information during story time. But to kind of confirm even what you said about teaching the body parts, the teacher missed it because the mom never taught the girl the proper name for her private areas. And so they missed it. But then in the family, if 90% of the perpetrators are people children know and the family is familiar with, and these are people that you're supposed to trust, then we have to teach the children. Because a child, in a lot of testimonies and a lot of survivors, didn't even know that what was happening was wrong because it was so prevalent. And so it became a way of life. And so how did they find out? They find out like this. They find out from survivors who have the courage to tell the story so that they can know what it is. Hopefully and praying that it never happens. But if it is happening, that they hear your story and say, wait a minute, I begin to tell it. I didn't have anyone that I could think of that I could go to, that I could just tell it to. So maybe if you're going through this and you're watching this, or you know a child that is experiencing sexual abuse, they find someone. Think of who you can trust. Find someone that you can confide in. I know in my family, one of the uncles had sexually assaulted one of the cousins, and they didn't tell their parent, but they told the cousin. Mm. And the cousin trusted their parent enough to tell them what the cousin told them.
Right.
And that was good. That's a good example. What was not a good example is how their parent responded. And their parent said, oh, they did that to us when we were younger. Mm. But it did come out. And that's what, now the response didn't appreciate.
Right.
However, the fact that they told, even if it's not an adult, you find someone to tell it to. Because when you carry that weight on you, that secret, that's why some of the signs of a child being sexually abused, they drugs, some of them become isolated, they're not enjoying the activities they used to enjoy. Right. Some of them no longer care about their hygiene. It's just different, they overeat. Mm-hmm. And in my case, I didn't do a lot of that. I became an overachiever. Right. I had to be perfect at everything. It just had to be perfect. If it wasn't perfect, I was very hard on myself because I was packing a secret and I knew something that nobody else knew. So maybe if I can make sure I'm good, I'm never in trouble, I don't want anybody to feel like I'm the bad child, then that can compensate for this burden, this hidden secret that I was carrying on the inside
right.
of me. Right. And so that trauma that children go through, and that little fast girl, I was called fast. I didn't even know what fast was. What you mean I'm fast?
Right.
And so, but we also find out that, unfortunately, Rose, sometimes they know. Mm. When you hear an adult say, oh, well, that's what, they did that to me too. But then you knew this was a perpetrator in the family.
Right.
Why didn't you protect this child?
Versus protecting the predator.
The predator. And then sometimes, just to be fair, sometimes that trauma, the suppressed trauma, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. it happened to me. There's no way they're going to do it to anybody else. Because there are threats that go forth, like you shared. I'm going to kill this person. Oh, only reason I'm doing it to you, because if I don't do it to you, I'm going to do it to your other sibling. And things of that nature. So sometimes we take on the idea, well, okay, well, as long as I'm, cooperating and I'm compliant, then everybody else is protected. And majority of the time, that's not the case. But in your story and just the healing from that, and something you stated that is so valuable as well is healing. You're still healing. Healing is a process. Yeah. Yeah. It's a process. And in our programs, we talk about moving from victimization, being a victim, to a survivor. Mm-hmm. And we just talked about survivor, thriver.
Right.
Because there comes to a point where you can be in a place to where you're not as triggered as you used to be, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. to where you can come out here. I tell people I'm a survivor, thriver. Everybody has their process in this, have their time in this process for healing. And I just want to tell you, man, when you become the survivor, thriver, I just feel like your shadow is going to turn some folks upside down. I'm talking about these perpetrators upside down. And that and I'm going to tell you what I see with you. I see nations being healed because of your courage and your fortitude to just come forth and say, not on my watch.
Right.
Yeah. Not on my watch. You haven't shared yet, but I want to bring this out because of something you share with me about how you make sure you talk to your family. Mm-hmm. You talk to your family members about signs and being watchful and being protected, because you really have a desire that this because it's a generational curse,
right,
that it does not travel through your family. And that, my sister, you see me, I was saying earlier I needed some tissue on our set, but I didn't know it was for me. But and I admire that because it takes courage. It takes fortitude. But you know what it really takes more of? It takes love. Yeah. And you have true love. Because right now, because it was your father, you could be harboring hate. You could be harboring bitterness right now. But you chose to forgive him so that you can have the love that flows through your heart to help not only you heal, but help generations have that healing as well.
And one of the things that I'm very mindful of, because of my relationship that I had with my father, I don't want that to hinder the relationship that my husband has with his daughter.
Yes,
so I found myself initially, every time my daughter would go sit on my husband's lap, I'm getting tense because I know what I experienced.
Right.
And I was like, no, get off of your dad's lap. And I had to learn that in order for her to be able to experience the true raw love of a father, I had to trust that he would not do that to her. Now, it's a difference between trust and be blind with it,
right?
But trust and be aware,
right,
and to inform both,
right.
And so my husband knows where my concern comes from is a deep, deep hurt,
right,
from when I was a little girl,
right.
And he is very patient with that,
yes.
And he is very, very understanding with that. So if there's ever a time where I'm like, yeah, that's a little bit too much, he understands,
right,
and he's not, trying to just say, oh, you're overreacting. No, you're reacting according to your experiences,
your trauma, your
yes. But I'm getting to the point now where it is, I want my daughter to have that great relationship with her father that
yes.
I did not have.
Yes.
And I am glad that I have a husband that is willing to be a great father,
yes.
be a great husband,
yes.
and be so open with me
yes.
to allow me to express how I'm feeling.
And and hey, we're gonna have to close the show. We're gonna bring you back for a part 2. I think I'm so glad that this portion of your testimony as well has made it to this portion of the show, because it's very important the type of support system that you have around you in your healing process. Yes. And because your husband truly loves you, love is patient. And he has the patience because he provides you the grace and space to grow through your healing. And let me tell you that for better, for worse part, he's actually living that with you.
Yes.
And that's why I believe that, and I wanted him to come with you.
Yes.
But I understand there were other variables with that. But maybe the next time you both can come, because I think your testimony will help so many families, because there are marriages that break up because of hidden and suppressed trauma, and then the partner does not understand it, right. And they don't know how to work through it, right? But your story has been amazing, and it's not yet over. And you are so much, somewhere in the future, looking much better than you look right now.
Yes.
Doing much better than you're doing right now.
I receive it.
Being more freer than you are free right now.
Yes.
And healed, even in a greater capacity than you are right now. So before we close out, why don't you just share some nuggets to encourage maybe someone that may be experiencing abuse or have experienced that trauma and wants to become courageous as you are in their process.
Yeah.
Talk to our.
Well, first and foremost, that there's not anything that's happening to you that God did not already know was going to happen before you were formed. But the comfort is that there's definitely help. There's help that's out there. There's resources. There's individuals. If you don't think that you have someone in your circle that you can reach out to, Dr. Nicole have resources. There's organizations that are willing to come in and to provide that support, that counseling. One of my biggest things that have helped me thus far is counseling. And I'm not talking about someone that's just gonna, give you some good feelings. No, someone that's gonna get you to that deep trauma and actually address those big serious issues, so that you can start healing from it. But the most important thing that you need to know is that you're loved. God loves you. We love you. We care about you. We care about each and every person that have ever become a victim of someone else's perversion. You are loved. You are prayed for on a daily basis. You are cared for, and you can and you will become a victor and not a victim. That life is not, it's not over for you. You still have a ... There are still things to come for you. And I'm praying and I'm hoping that whoever is out there, whoever needs to see this, share with them. If it's not you, I guarantee it's someone that you know, someone else that you may think is going through something. Please share this with them. Share the resources that Dr. Nicole is going to share, so that they can begin the healing process.
All right, thank you so much. And with that note, I'm going to say this before I end this. If you are in a church and you are being abused by anyone in that church, disconnect yourself from that church. God is not going to do anything to harm you when you disconnect yourself from abuse, because it's not his will for you to be abused. I don't care who it is. And if it's something going on in your family, find someone you can talk to. And if there's any resources that you need, we will be providing Ms. Rose's information, our information, and our organizational information on our website. So again, thank you for hanging in here with us today. We know it was hard, but it was necessary. Thank you, Rose. Thank you so much for sharing your story and using it as a key to help unlock everybody else's captivity. This is yours truly, Dr. Nicole Lynette. And until next time, reach in.